episode of Motorgirls, where it's all about living the dream.
This week, everything you wanted to know about brakes and bras. And how do you feel about getting into a bit of 8-second drag racing action?
For all you budding hoons out there, don't forget to watch Skid School. And all the info about speed laser guns, multinovas and jammers, so you can stay one step ahead of the boys in blue. So stick around and enjoy the show!
So have you ever had to replace your brake pads before? You may have heard a high-pitched squealing noise coming from your front wheels. That'll be a built-in indicator or shim that's built into the brake pad material that tells you that your brake pads are almost worn. You've still got quite a bit of meat left in your pads at that point, but it does mean you have to replace them soon. Last week, Melissa showed you how to get your wheel off. Today we've got the car safely up on jack stands, firmly supported, the car's going nowhere. It's always a good idea to put a tyre under your car to support the car just in case the jack or the jack stands fail. Okay, we can see from this that I've actually got quite a lot of pad wear left on my brake pads, a good 4 or 5 mils. I don't need to change my brake pads at this point, but I'm going to anyway. I've been running Ferodo DS2500s because I've been using this on the track. I haven't been doing any track work lately, and the DS2500s, like any high performance brake pad, will be quite harsh on your rotors. So I'm going to change to a slightly milder high performance pad, still a Ferodo, but it'll be a little more gentle on my brake rotors and still give me effective braking. The components of your brake assembly are fairly simple. You've got your caliper, that's this big section here. You've got your rotor, that's the shiny disc. Inside the caliper you've got a couple of pistons. Some brakes will have 2 pistons, some will have 4. The high performance V8s, heavier cars, they'll actually have 6. You can see these bumps here, that's actually the 2 pistons on this side, so we've got 4 pistons in total. The pistons squeeze the brake pads together. They clamp onto the rotor, and that's what stops your car. Always got to make sure that your rotor's in good condition. We've got a really nice shiny rotor. I know it's not badly scored. If it was badly scored, I'd want to get that either machined flat again or replace it. Perth Brake Parts have supplied us with these Ferodo brake pads. You could go for a factory pad. A factory pad is fine for your normal street car, a car that does your A to B driving, drives you to work and back, a little bit of country driving, perfectly fine. If you're doing any sort of track work or high performance driving, bit of spirited country driving, you definitely want to go for a high performance pad. There are different levels of high performance pads available, ranging from just above the factory pad with quite a soft compound, they're very gentle on your rotors, through to a really high performance pad with quite high metallic content, and they're actually quite aggressive on your rotors. These pads though are no good for your street driving, as sometimes they take a bit of time to get up to optimum temperature, and if you were to drive down the corner, have to stop at a stop sign, those pads actually probably won't work for the first few minutes. They need to be up to quite a good temperature to be able to operate effectively. When you're changing your pads, what we need to do is first suss out exactly how the brake assembly is put together, and make sure that you pull it apart in a way that you can put it back together again. So have a close look at our brake pads, and we've brake pad assembly. We've got rods, pins and clips. Most brake pad assemblies will be similar. Some are floating calipers. This is a fixed caliper. So we actually have to just lift out the rods and remove the pads. It's just a case of removing the spring that holds the pins together, of the rods, and slide out these rods. One, make sure you hold this spring in place. It's always a good idea to put your parts in order that they come out so that you can put them back in the same order. So we've got two rods. This spring just sits on top, holds the pads in place, and these are your pads. So we can just lift these out. I might just use the screwdriver to help me along here, just to get them started. And they just slide out. So there's one. And the other one comes out quite easily because you've already removed one. Before you put your new pads in, it's a good idea to sand the edges. That gets rid of loose debris around the edge to minimise squealing. Another idea to minimise your squealing is to put brake pad grease on the back of the pad, on this surface here. Now to get your new pads in, you need to depress the pistons in here because they've been squeezing on your old pads. The new pads are going to have quite a bit of more meat on them, so we need to depress those pistons to be able to fit in the new pads. To depress the pistons, you can either use the old pad by placing it in. Usually I do this as I'm pulling the pads out, but while it's in there, you can just lever the piston and it will squeeze the piston back in with the edge of the brake pad. Then it's just a case of sliding your new pads in. You might have to move your rotors around a little bit. If there's not enough room there for the pads, just use your old brake pad again and leave those pistons out. And we want to put our rods back in. Need to line up the holes. We've got a little clip which is quite tricky to get in. And to put this through the holes in the rod. And to do that we need to rotate this. A bit tricky to get to, but we finally got him in. What we're going to do now is put the wheel back on, get it off the axles, off the jack stands, get it down on the ground, and it's very important at that point to make sure we pump the brake pedal, make sure those pistons are pushed out again so that they're effective when we want to use our brakes. For bedding in these brakes, you want to drive your car to about 60 kilometres an hour and then brake down to about 5 kilometres an hour using firm brake pressure. It's important not to stop. Do that 8 to 10 times and then your brakes should be bedded in. Bedding in is very important because that gives you 100% contact between your new pad and your old rotors. And that's it. Your brakes are done.
Motorgirls. Handy hints, tightened by the King Chrome Spanner Chicks. To most rev heads, nothing sounds sweeter than the sound of a high-powered revving race car or the sound of a modified exhaust system. But also, nothing sounds worse than an annoying sound coming from somewhere in your car. So, if you do have a few disturbing noises, there are a few tools that you can use to diagnose the problem. Number 1, use a screwdriver. Cup your hand to your ear and put the tip anywhere you think the noise is coming from. You can do this with a hose also, but of course nothing is going to be as accurate as one of these stethoscopes which we got from King Chrome. Now, some disturbing noises that you might hear quite often are squealing, which usually comes from your belt, but what you can do is spray some of this silicone lubricant on there or rub some soap on the underside of the belt while it's running. If the noise doesn't go away, then you know that it's something else, like your accessories. And your accessories are your alternator, your power steering pump or your air conditioning compressor. So you can either check again with your stethoscope or isolate each belt off the accessory, and if the noise is still there, you're going to have to keep looking. Other things to do are test your rocker covers for any knocking. Inside your motor might be knocking. That could mean wrong fuel, could mean a worn crankshaft, but the way you can test it is pull each lead off individually. If the noise stops, then you know that's the cylinder you'll be looking at. Other things are like ticking or pinging, which means you're running the wrong fuel or that you need to check your ignition timing. Perhaps there's some hissing coming from your vacuum hoses. That could mean that you've got worn, damaged hoses or that they're not connected properly.
Fashion Talk. Welcome to Fashion Talk. This week, Jamie, the 2005 runner-up Miss Motorsport, and I will be checking out the latest in lingerie. To find out what's hot in the bra shop, we've sourced an expert in the field. Shana from Bras and Things, thank you for devoting your time to such an important topic.
Of course.
So Shana, what are the latest trends in bras? Is it a sensible and serious type market out there, or is there a demand for a lot of satin and lace?
Oh, definitely both. The sensible would be your t-shirt style bras, your strapless bras, and we'll see Jamie in one of those. Basically something that can be versatile, convertible, and most of our lines will do that. Then in your satin lines, you'd be looking at a satin indulgence range, which is still relatively new to bras and things. Lots of colours, lots of satin, some with lace, some without, a bit of everything, so just to keep everyone happy. And in terms of what's new, I'd say mesh lines, things that aren't always lace but with a bit of mesh. You'll see one of those coming up later in pink, it's gorgeous. And then the other thing would be the convertible strap at the back. Rather than your traditional clips, looking at something that's a little more convertible, which is similar to a bather but with a convertible strap, so that's a new idea.
These men walking weak at the knees. Well, I might be a little bit weird, but I don't care.
Can you give us some simple tips on how to improve one's cleavage, whether big or small?
Certainly, I would suggest the water bra for the smaller cup size. You will enhance the bust line by at least a cup size, and if you feel that, certainly is a water bra. Once the tension's behind there and wearing, it's quite firm, so there's a more even distribution across the bust line and a more natural look, so it suits more people.
Right.
For someone like Jamie, who I would say is more around about a D cup, Jamie, just come over a little. So this is a more cleavage achieving bra because mainly this lower bust line here, the underwire, is achieving that particular shape. So it's really about the shape. The next bra you'll see Jamie in is actually a balconette style. Again, a lower cut, and that also achieves the cleavage. So yeah, gorgeous bra on.
And what would you recommend for chicks that are into motocross or the like?
Absolutely sports bras all the way. Burley is definitely a winner. This is a new one. It does have the underwire in, but it's basically invisible, so you can wear it as a crop top without having to wear extra tops. Just turn for us, Jamie. You'll also see this is a new idea with the Velcro strap, so it's far more adjustable for your littler size shoulders, because very often we can't tighten them, and then where do you go from there when the bra stretches? You can turn back for us, and she'll have to jump up and down a little just to show us. Very supportive, won't be moving too much in that at all, so it's great.
Well, that's fantastic, ladies. I think we should be a full cup by now. Thanks, Shana, for sharing some very valuable advice with us, and also to Jamie for being such a great model. If you would like to see more of Jamie, check out the 2006 Miss Motorsports calendar, and if you are looking for more advice on a good fit, check out the Fashion Talk page on our website. Motorgirls.
Not all experimenting is done in laboratories such as this. Human reactions are being tested.
Yeah.
I did try to warn Bushy, but she was too busy talking on her mobile phone. Today I'm talking about the laser leader gun. Apart from being a highly focused laser beam that is very accurate, it leaves little scatter, making advanced radar detection almost impossible with the use of the finest detector. When using it, the officer must have already made a visual determination of your vehicle, much like a sniper with a rifle and scope. Whilst the laser is relatively
accurate under certain conditions, there are some circumstances where it could be questionable. Firstly, the person shooting is only human and not an Olympic marksman, especially when it may be from a distance of 200 metres. If he misses, he could be hitting another vehicle. Secondly, the weather, such as rain and clouds and spots of hot and cold air rising from the roadway, can confuse the laser and give an inaccurate reading. Halogen lights can affect it too.
Reflexes are automatic.
To make sure you're given an accurate reading, you should know that laser guns aren't to be used on a bend in the road, at the bottom of a hill, or on a gradient, or within 50 metres of a speed restriction or de-restriction zone, or in a deceleration area coming into town. But this doesn't apply to a complaint area or an area where there is a school situated. Lasers must have a clear line of sight. So, how to protect and equip yourself? If you've received an infringement and you are not exceeding the limit, you should defend yourself. It is your legal right. With mobile radars, you should always ask to see the reading. Also, if the police have estimated your speed and you weren't speeding, then you'll have to decide how far you want to take the matter in both cases. If need be, try and subpoena the speed detection equipment for their calibration history. Make sure they have been serviced regularly, but also make sure your speedometer is accurate as well. It can be very hard to fight the reading on the spot and probably in court. Usually their word against yours. So number one, as this applies for lasers as well, make sure you know your surroundings at the time of the alleged offence. Two, if you're a person of principle, then carry a dictaphone. Roadside defence begins the moment you are pulled over, and you should tape the whole conversation which takes place. Never admit liability. You need evidence. You should also take photos of the scene and surrounds while it is still fresh and not later down the track. So, the things to be onto are, remember where they hide. If the person in front brakes suddenly or for no reason, they may be reacting to a speed trap. Ideally, you want to get yourself a good radar detector. As well as this, get yourself a laser jammer, and that should keep you in stealth mode for a while.
Come on, George. Might as well get it over with.
The situation in this puzzle state. Note the complete inability to...
Skid School, yeah!
Satan is ever present among us. Every sin and deed, word or thought, no matter how long forgotten.
Welcome to Skid School.
The Holy Inquisition finds you guilty of heresy, and you and your descendants must be cleansed in blood.
Darkest shadows are on their way. I hear the bell tell on this darkest day. I see them looking at me. I see them glaring at me.
You've seen guys, you've seen girls doing burnouts. Today we're going to show you how to do a burnout in a rear-wheel drive manual car. First thing you want to think about is a car with some power. This is only a 2-litre, 4-cylinder, but with some simple bolt-on mods, this is now pushing out 276 rear-wheel horsepower. We should be able to get some smoke out of this baby. Other things to consider when you're doing burnouts, pick a safe spot. You don't want to do this in your local street. The locals will get upset. Some people just don't appreciate this kind of fun. So we're going to see today, we're going to look at our tyres, our brakes, and how to get those rear wheels spinning. Other than having enough power for your burnouts, you want to have a set of tyres that you don't mind trashing. I didn't want to waste my good hand-cooked tyres, so today I've brought along a set that I prepared earlier. These tyres have nearly had it, and they'll do nicely for the job. Other things other than your tyres are your brakes. The kindest way to do a burnout is to lock your rear brakes with a line locker. We've put a line locker on this car, so the rear brakes aren't going to be working. Normally your brakes are proportioned, so 30% on your rears, 70% of your braking is done with your fronts. With a line locker, there's no braking done on your rear wheels, so you're not going to hurt your rear pads. Something else you want to consider is make sure that your engine and transmission is warmed up. You don't want to be thrashing your car on a cold engine, it's not good for it. Other ways to be nice to your car is make sure your wheels are lubed. We can use soapy water, we can use bleach, but today we're really lucky because we've got Wayne, the water boy. We're going to use water. Basically, all we want to do is get those rear wheels spinning and keep the car as stationary as possible. Got to have gentle brake pressure, enough to keep the car stationary and be able to keep those revs up. One way of keeping your brake on and the accelerator going at the same time is being able to use heel toe, which is what we use on the track. Heel toeing is your toe on the brake, your heel on the accelerator, and you can still dab the accelerator while keeping gentle pressure on your brakes. The last thing you want to check or keep an eye on when you're doing a burnout is your temperature gauge. You don't want to cook your engine. So if the temperature gauge starts creeping up, just get your foot off that brake, let your car go get some air. Let's go burn some rubber. So there's no excuse. Get out there, burn some rubber.
I swear, she is not a witch. She is like an angel. Satan was an angel. Trust the church.
Club Central.
So, you think that drag racing is just for muscly blokes and their V8s? Wrong. Drag racing is fun. It's pure adrenaline. Whether you're in a car that runs 8 seconds or 18 seconds, if you try it, trust me, you'll never regret it. I started racing just for fun 12 years ago in a street hot rod and still get the same buzz today that I got at that first time I raced at Ravenswood Raceway. If you want to try it and don't want to outlay any money at the start, why not bring your street car down to a Wednesday night at the Motorplex? Haven't got a street car? Borrow your mum's station wagon. There's only a few requirements to join in, like a 3-point lap sash belt as a minimum, which is any standard car seat belt, long sleeves, an improved helmet, closed shoes and socks. Motorplex officials will check your vehicle for general safety items and your protective clothing to ensure you're all set to race. All drag racing activities are sanctioned by the Australian National Drag Racing Association, or ANDRA. The Motorplex have put out a booklet called How to Go Drag Racing, which you can find on their website or ring them up and ask for a copy to be sent.
Pauline Eagleston coming out in the xspeed.com.au.
A better way to find out a bit more about drag racing is to contact Westside Drag Racing Association. This is WA's longest running drag racing club. Its members are varied, men, women of all ages who love their drag racing. You don't even have to be a racer to be a member. For any more information on drag racing, make sure you check out Club Central on the Motorgirls website, www.motorgirlstv.com. See ya!
Alrighty, well we're out of here. Motorgirls would like to thank Steve Wright of Wright's Towing Service, Wahimi for our swimsuits, and of course Decadence for our makeup and nails.
Make sure you stay tuned to Access 31 on Tuesday nights at 11:30.
And Saturday for breakfast at 10 a.m. for more Motorgirls adventures.
And if you want more information, check out our website, motorgirlstv.com.
Until then, drive
Pauline gets there second with an 8.74 at 236 kilometres an hour.
8-second drag racing. Yeah, baby.
Welcome to... I just can't remember that. What did I say to start off last time? get.
Thank God you're here, Motorgirls. My compressor's packed it in and all the brakes are locked on.
Motorgirls.